Yo, what is up, guys? It's Cohen back here again tonight with another episode of After the Buzzer. The playoffs continue rolling, and so the videos keep coming out every single night. Subscribe if you like NBA content, if you like hearing about the playoffs, because I'm trying to do these videos every single night that there's a playoff game, so be on the lookout for all of these videos. We had some weird games today. We're going to start off with Philly and Washington, which was a blowout, then move into Utah-Memphis, which was a half blowout, half not blowout, and then move into Hawks-Knicks, which was partially a blowout here and there for both teams, and then ended up being a really close game. It was a weird day of basketball. I do want to start, like I said, though, with Philly and Washington, mainly because there's a lot of things I want to talk about on the Philly side of the ball. Also talking about why this is such a mismatch for the Wizards, why going into the series, I thought that honestly Philly was probably the worst matchup possible for the Washington Wizards going into the playoffs. Obviously, Brooklyn is not much better with how talented that team is, but probably Washington's biggest weakness is their inability to guard just large people. They can't guard Joel Embiid. They can't stop Ben Simmons. They can't stop Tobias Harris. All three are just massive forces, and they just can't stop any of them. They're dominant. They can attack the paint. They can hit you in the mid-range. They can do whatever they need to do, and they're kind of just shooting over the Wizards whenever they want to. The Wizards are just outclassed in every facet here. I thought the Wizards were going to get a game when I predicted this series. I'm not so sure about that now. If I had to predict right now, I think this is going to end up being a sweep. Philly's just too good. And the only reason I really gave the Wizards a game is because I thought Russ and Beal could will them to one. Obviously, love Russell Westbrook as a Thunder fan, but I just don't think he or Beal are enough. Bertans is looking like one of the worst contracts in the entire NBA. As of right now, they paid him $80 million to not exactly do what he's supposed to do. He had 0 points in 26 minutes today, and he fouled out. So that's how his game went. But I think what really showed through in this game, and also when I talk about the Jazz-Memphis game, is the dominance of Philly as a 1 seed. I think we were kind of like blessed with some of these like really good matchups, and now we're kind of starting to see teams show who they are, especially the higher seeds just dominating a lot of the time. This was a great example of it. Philly just outclassed Washington in every single facet of the game. Up 11 after a quarter, up 14 at half, up 14 at the start of the fourth quarter, and then they outscored them 26-15, ended up winning by 25 points. The bench warmers were in by like the 8-minute mark. I don't think the starters played a single minute in the fourth quarter in this game. Joel Embiid is just dominant, and I think I want to talk a little bit mainly about why the Sixers are so good, because I feel like I haven't talked about enough why they're so good. I've talked a ton about Embiid, and I am going to start with talking about Embiid because he's their best player, but I want to talk about why the Sixers are so good and why they can win the East, why they can win the finals, because I feel like a lot of people are kind of sleeping on them. So I'm going to kind of go into this. First of all, Joel Embiid, not just against the Wizards, but no team has been able to stop him all season, and especially not the Wizards. And there's really no team in the East that matches up well with Joel Embiid. No team really in the NBA that matches up well with how good Joel Embiid is, mainly because what you used to be able to do with Joel Embiid is you could throw a double team at him. As soon as he caught the ball right off the catch, you could throw another defender at him, and so a lot of times he would either make a bad decision on a pass and throw an errant pass, which was off the mark for the shooter, so they couldn't put up a shot, therefore allowing the players that were double teaming Embiid to then rotate back to that shooter, giving them the opportunity to guard up, and it was just a waste of like 5 seconds off the shot clock. Or he would turn the ball over. Those are usually the two ways that it went. Or if he did get a good pass off, the Philly teams in the past did not have enough shooters to convert on those looks that Embiid hit them with off of the double team. However, they have fixed all of those problems. First of all, they've added shooters. We've talked about this previously in past videos, but Curry, Danny Green, excellent additions by Daryl Morey, especially Seth Curry. Making the decision to go from Josh Richardson to Seth Curry has been great, and Tobias Harris has really been the best version we've ever seen of him this season. He adds another scoring threat. Ben Simmons on the cut, getting down low, banging around with opposing point guards who just can't guard him because he's so tall, especially today. I'm going to talk about aggressive Ben Simmons in a second because Ben Simmons is way more fun to watch when he's aggressive, and I think it's something that we need to see more of from him, or I would like to see as a fan from him. But not only do those shooters now exist around Joel Embiid, he's gotten so much better at making those reads. Because the second the double starts coming, Embiid makes a decision. Like, no matter what the decision is, he makes the decision. He's either going to shoot over his one defender so that there's not enough time to come double him, or even sometimes he'll still shoot over the double and make it anyways, or as soon as the defender comes over, he knows who's coming over. He knows who's going to rotate off their man, and he finds the open 76er in correspondence with who's supposed to be guarding that guy, but is instead doubling Joel Embiid. He finds that guy every single time. I can't remember the last time Joel Embiid made a bad read. I tweeted that out earlier when someone commented, oh, we made bad reads all the time in the Celtics series. That was a year ago. I don't think he's made one all season. That's been a bad read off of those passes off of double teams. So you can't even double team him effectively anymore. And so the Wizards would double him and he would just keep killing them by getting the ball to Steph Curry, who would drill a three, or Danny Green, who would drill a three, or Tobias Harris or Ben Simmons, who were under the basket, or George Hill for a three. Any one of those guys, he would just hit one of them and they just make the Wizards pay. And so they tried to go. I was watching the Wizards announcers because they're the local broadcast for me. So the Wizards announcer, I think it was Drew Gooden, said the Wizards need to try to one-on-one Joel Embiid more. And I was like, that is not a good decision. But the problem is you can't double him either, because if he makes those great decisions, then you're screwed either way. So they tried to go one-on-one with him. It didn't even matter. Joel Embiid didn't even score that much in this game. But it's because they're focusing so heavily on Joel Embiid, and he's so good at making those good decisions that he's able to just avoid those double teams. He doesn't have to score that much. He put up 22 today, which was tied with Ben Simmons for the leading scorer of the team, which is something you've probably only heard once or twice this entire season. But Joel Embiid has just been so good this season. Beyond his dominance in the mid-range, beyond his three-point shooting, beyond backing guys down, it's his decision-making and the supporting cast around him and how much he trusts those guys. This team trusts each other, and they know that when they make the play to their teammates, they're going to convert every single time, and they're super reliable. Tobias Harris, I feel like every time Tobias Harris shoots a turnaround jumper, it's going in. Tobias Harris hit some of the weirdest shots I've ever seen. His shot form is both very smooth and ugly at the same time, and I don't know why, but it goes in. 19-9 with 1 assist. He only had to play 23 minutes. He kind of twisted his ankle and immediately came back in and drilled a three. He was fine. Tobias Harris is kind of just invincible. I'm going to knock on wood when I say that because I don't want him to get hurt. But if you remember in the Celtics series last year, Tobias Harris had that crazy fall where I was like, oh my God, he's definitely out for the game. And he came back in despite it being game 4 of a sweep. So Tobias Harris is a warrior. Shout out to him. Or he's a 76er. Shout out to him. That was a lame joke. I apologize. But Ben Simmons is the guy I want to talk about. Ben Simmons with 22, 9, and 8. He came out from the get-go and was attacking because the Wizards don't have the size to match up with him. And this is something, assuming they do get to the Eastern Conference Finals and it's the Brooklyn Nets facing them, this is something Ben Simmons has to do for them to beat the Nets. He has to use his size to his advantage. A lot of times Ben Simmons doesn't use his size. He goes into the paint and he uses it to look over the defenders and see who he needs to pass the ball to. And that's a great advantage. But a lot of times he doesn't use his size to his advantage in terms of attacking the rim, finishing, hitting he hit a couple little flip hooks. He hit a turnaround jumper too, kind of like a fadeaway type thing, which is crazy from Ben Simmons over, I can't remember who his defender was, but because the Wizards don't have anyone to guard him, he took advantage. He said, okay, I'm going to start this game and set the tone early that I am a threat. And that's exactly what he did. And so the Wizards, they couldn't commit to just leaving Ben Simmons open because Ben Simmons said, I'm going to be aggressive. I'm going to make great defensive play. He was incredible on defense again today. He continues to be, he has been all season, but he just dominated on both sides of the ball. This was one of the best Ben Simmons games of this entire season. And he is the reason why they were so dominant in this game. I think he had 10 or 12 in the first quarter, and then the Wizards were terrified of him. It makes sense. It's like almost 7-foot point guard putting up 15 points in like a quarter. It makes sense why you'd be terrified of him. He doesn't have to be a shooter to be effective. Obviously, him shooting would help the Sixers, but I think games like this show why Ben Simmons can be so effective and why the Sixers are so good. The Sixers are scary. They can win the East. I feel like a lot of people think it's a foregone conclusion that the Nets are going to win, and maybe this is just me hoping that parity still exists in the NBA, but the Sixers look terrifying in this game. They showed flashes of their dominance, and it's not just because it was the Wizards, it's because the Sixers outclassed them in every single way. They're just the better team. They're more talented, they're the better team. And they're probably going to be, or actually, I know they will be, the better team whoever they face in the second round of the playoffs. Whether the Hawks or Knicks win, we'll talk about that game in a second, but whoever wins in that series is going to have their hands full because there's no one on either of those teams that can stop Joel Embiid either. Clint Capella is good. Mitchell Robinson, if he comes back, and Nerlens Noel are good. They can't stop Joel Embiid. Embiid's going to keep making the right decision, and that decision making is one of the biggest reasons why the Sixers and he are so dominant this season. I really like watching the Sixers play. They play a brand of basketball that I think is super fun to watch. I love mid-ranges. Maybe it's me watching Chris Paul and Russell Westbrook for years. Russell Westbrook with that little pull-up mid-range, and Chris Paul with those like fadeaway mid-ranges over whoever wants to guard him. But I love watching mid-ranges, and so watching Joel Embiid and Tobias Harris is really fun for me. So the Sixers were dominant. They're going to continue to be dominant, and I think they're going to end up sweeping this series now that I've watched 2 games of it. So shout out to the Sixers for how good they were. Another team that showed flashes of their dominance tonight were the Utah Jazz. 141-129 beating the Memphis Grizzlies. I do need to give credit to the Grizzlies before I talk about the Jazz, though, because the Grizzlies came into this game and they barely got out of the last one, given it was a win over the 1 seed, but Donovan Mitchell wasn't playing. And so they very well could have just rolled over and Donovan Mitchell could have destroyed them, Rudy Gobert could have killed them, and they could have said, all right, I guess we're just going down. We're an 8 seed, we'll get them next year or whatever. No, they fought. Even when they went down a ton. They were down like 20 at halftime, I think they were. It was bad, and they kept fighting. Every time they went down, they brought it back, especially in that third quarter. Like I said, they were down 20 at halftime, and they went into the fourth quarter down 6. They had a great third quarter, led by Ja Morant, who had 47 tonight, which is the Grizzlies franchise record in his second playoff game ever. Ja Morant special, and there's not many players in the league like him. Not many players we've ever seen like him. He's another one of those very athletic, high-flying, like, fun-to-watch point guards, a la like a Derrick Rose or like a Russell Westbrook, and I love those players. I love watching super athletic guards make those tough shots, make those tough finishes. There are so many times I've seen Ja Morant go into Rudy Gobert, who was dominant. Rudy Gobert was so good in this game, and I'm going to talk about him in a second, but there were so many times where I saw Ja Morant just go at Rudy Gobert. Even one time where he tried to dunk on Rudy Gobert, and Rudy Gobert destroyed him for it with a 2-handed block. But, the confidence is what I like. I like to see the confidence. Dylan Brooks was good again tonight, 23. Jonas Valanciunas with 18. Jaren Jackson Jr. is a guy I would like to see get down low a little bit more. I know he's not super strong or anything, but he's really tall. Maybe he was deterred because like the one time he went down low, he got swatted by Rudy Gobert, just very disrespectfully, and maybe that deterred him or something like that. But I want to see Jaren Jackson Jr. attack, because there's not many people with his size and his wingspan on this Utah team. It's like Rudy Gobert, and that's it. So if he takes more advantage of that, I think the Grizzlies could be a little more dangerous. But I also would not be surprised if this was a 5-game series with just how good the Jazz looked tonight. Even though, like I said, Ja Morant and the Grizzlies, they fought back really hard, and the Jazz did have a great performance. So it's not like the Grizzlies are out of this thing or anything. I think they could come back and take another game, but the Jazz really showed why they're the 1 seed and why they're so dominant. I think the people just forget how good the Jazz have been. I think that for some reason that one game just completely erased everyone's memory of why the Jazz are so good. And I don't know what it is about the Jazz. I don't know I think it's Rudy Gobert, to be honest. Just Rudy Gobert comes off as a guy that a lot of people don't like. Between the microphone incident, him talking a lot about not getting his recognition and stuff like that, not being like your typical like flashy type player. He just kind of blocks shots and plays solid defense. People hate Rudy Gobert. And I think that's why they don't like the Jazz very much and why people refuse to give the Jazz credit. This Jazz team is really, 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 really good. They're a really good basketball team. And Rudy Gobert is a big reason for that. Tonight, he was dominant. 21, 13, and 3. I believe it was 4 blocks. It felt like every time there was a shot that needed to be put back, it was Rudy Gobert right there. Every time someone drove to the rim and missed a shot, Rudy Gobert had the rebound and kicked it back out to someone, or just put it back up and in, because Jonas Valanciunas can't get up on Rudy Gobert. He just couldn't stop him. And Rudy Gobert deterred so many people from the paint. Ja Morant is just different, and having to face Jonas Valanciunas as a spacing big definitely makes it more difficult for Rudy Gobert to do his normal rim protection, which is why I think Ja Morant is going off in this series. And it's kind of a little bit of why Jamal Murray went off in the series from last year with the Nuggets and the Jazz, where they blew the 3-1 lead, the Jazz. They just really struggle with those really athletic, quick guards. I think, like I said, I think it's partially because Rudy Gobert is not able to be down in the paint quite as much. Also, they don't have a great guard defender. Mike Conley is all right. Donovan Mitchell's all right, but none of them are going to keep up with John Morant. And the fact that Jonas Valanciunas and last year with Nikola Jokic are able to space the floor so well, Gobert can't really fully commit to guarding down there, because if he does, then the ball's just going to get kicked out to like a Jokic or a Jonas Valanciunas in this case. And so I think that's partially why, but the Jazz definitely need to figure that out, because if they win this series, they might have to face Luka in the next round, which is crazy to say because the Clippers really seemed like a team that was going to make a run in this year's playoffs, but being down 0-2 now, who knows? But they might have to face Luka, and if they have to face Luka, it's going to be scary for the Jazz, because Luka might drop a 50 bomb every single night, given he's not this super quick athletic guard, but he's definitely the best guard out of him, Jamal Murray, and John Morant. And so they got to figure something out there. I don't know what Quinn Snyder's going to do, given it didn't really matter tonight, because like I said, John Morant put up an insane amount of points, and they still lost by 12 points. Rudy Gobert, like I said, dominant defensively, offensively. Mike Conley with 20 and 15. Mike Conley's playmaking is something that has really been critical to the Jazz this year. The amount of open three-point looks they get is in large part due to Mike Conley, his playmaking, his ability to draw in defenses, the all-star guard. Shout out to Mike Conley for getting his first all-star appearance. Again, that makes me so happy to say that Mike Conley's an all-star. Donovan Mitchell's return was the big story of this game. He had 25 and 2. He only played 26 minutes. They kind of chilled him out towards the end of the game because he kind of took a hard fall, and they were like, oh shoot, that's terrifying. So they took him out because the Jazz had a pretty comfortable lead at that point. It would have taken a miracle for the Grizzlies to come back when Donovan Mitchell did go out of the game, but this was a good mix, and it looked like Donovan Mitchell could have played last game. I think their thought is just that they want to make sure he's okay, because ultimately, if Donovan Mitchell goes down, this Jazz team is not making it very far in the playoffs, so they've got to be careful with him, and that's what they were at the end of this game. And I think they think like, hey, we're the 1 seed, we can handle the Grizzlies. They have confidence in themselves. But the Grizzlies, to their credit, showed the Jazz that they're not a typical 8 seed. They're really scary. They're really good. John Morant is making his leap to stardom right now before our eyes. And so Donovan Mitchell had to come back, but they were able to play him only 26 minutes and get him out of there without too much injury. So that was good to see. Happy for Donovan Mitchell. Joe Ingles hit some crazy threes tonight. Jordan Clarkson, 16 points, some really tough ones. Niang with 8, Favors with only 5 and 3. But, you know, it's Derek Favors. He doesn't have to do too much. This was just an all-around effort from the Utah Jazz. They had 7 double-digit scores tonight, which is kind of the way that I expect them to continue to play. And that's the way they've really played all season, is that they are a team. Donovan Mitchell obviously does the most scoring. Rudy Gobert is also up there as well, same with Mike Conley. But like Bojan Bogdanovic can hit his threes whenever you need him to. Royce O'Neal, Joe Ingles, Jordan Clarkson, all these guys can score like really, really effectively. And that's what makes the Jazz so scary, is that there's so many options. Even if you shut down Donovan Mitchell, he can kick it out to a million other guys who can hit threes, and there's a scary paint defender, I almost said perimeter defender, a scary paint defender down there in Rudy Gobert that can swat your shot whenever you come in. So the Jazz are really good. Just like the Sixers, they showed their dominance tonight. Like I said, the Grizzlies kept this thing close, but it was only because John Morant was having a masterclass of a game. And ultimately, I don't know if he's going to continue to be able to put up those numbers. He's playing a lot of minutes. He's playing really hard. John Morant played 43 minutes tonight in regulation. He only sat for 5, and John Morant's going to have to play almost the whole game, every single game, if the Grizzlies want any shot in this series. And it's tough for a guy in his first playoff series, given he doesn't have much mileage on him, but these playoff games take a lot out of you. These are really physical, hard-fought games, and ultimately, I think it's going to be tough for the Grizzlies to take another game in this series. I could be completely wrong because I keep betting against them, and they keep proving me wrong, but the Jazz are just really good. Also, I want to give a shout out to the Jazz fans for their commitment to boo Dillon Brooks every time he touched the basketball. I don't think there was one possession where Dillon Brooks had the basketball and boos didn't rain down on him. That's commitment. Finally, we have Hawks-Knicks. This game, I don't want to talk about a ton, mainly because I didn't get a ton out of this game. Really what this game showed me is that even though the Knicks do not have a great offense, they can still win games. My big concern for the Knicks, given I did say this was going to be a 7-game series, but I did pick the Hawks mainly because the reason I didn't trust the Knicks offense. I know they have a great defense, but sometimes great offense just beats great defense, and I didn't really trust their ability to effectively put up points, and that did show its ugly head again tonight. The Hawks went up by like 15 in this game. I think they were up by like 14 at halftime or something like that. Another case similar to the Jazz Grizzlies game. But in this case, the Knicks made the comeback all the way, and it was mainly because the Hawks just started missing. They had a lot of open looks towards the end of the game, but I really didn't like their shot selection at the end of the game. From I think it was the 3-minute and 8-second mark till like some point in like the last minute or so, they didn't take a single 2-pointer. It was all threes. And I know this Hawks team is good at shooting threes. They've got a ton of shooters: Trae Young, Bogdanovich, John Collins, DeAndre Hunter, Danilo Gallinari, Kevin Huerter, Tony Snell, Lou Will. All those guys I just named can shoot threes really effectively at times. But it wasn't working. And they didn't make any effort to try and commit to a change. They just kept shooting the same threes, given Bogdan was taking some tough threes. DeAndre Hunter started off really hot, but really cooled off at the end. Same with Bogdanovich, who I was just talking about. But Trae Young was the reason why they were able to stay in it all the way until the end. It just wasn't enough. They just really got shut down. And credit to the Knicks, their defense. The Hawks were taking, like I said, a lot of open threes, but the Knicks were kind of just letting them have it. Like, they stopped making the threes. So the Knicks said, okay, you can take those threes, because what happened to them last game is that Trae Young killed them on those like floaters, those like short runners and stuff like that. That's where Trae Young really killed them. And so they kind of committed to stopping that towards the end of the game, and they kind of let them have these threes, giving them to a guy like DeAndre Hunter, who, given, has proven to be an effective 3-point threat at times, but tonight he just didn't have it. After he made his first two, and then after that he really didn't have it, and they said, okay, beat us from the 3-point line. And they couldn't. So, shout out to the Knicks. That was a solid strategy. It's kind of a crazy one, but it was decent. I'm sure they didn't want them to get wide open looks, but they were definitely letting them have 3-point looks more than they probably should have. I think they were just really committed to stopping that too. And like I said, the Hawks just stopped hitting them. They were really hitting them early in the game. Gallinari was not good tonight. He had 6 points. He should have had a lot more. Bogdan could have had more. Trae Young put up 30 and 7. He's been the best player in this series through both games. And I think he's going to have a really good performance all the way through. I'm excited to see where this series goes. Credit to the Knicks. Credit to Julius Randle, who started off once again really poorly. And he didn't have a very good game, but he did enough for his team to win, especially in that third quarter. 15 points, 12 rebounds, 4 assists. He hit like 2 back-to-back threes that really shifted their momentum. Derrick Rose, in typical Tom Thibodeau fashion, played 39 minutes with 26 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists. Didn't shoot super efficiently, but he got the points when they needed him to get the points. And Elfrid Payton, I don't even know why Elfrid Payton still starts. He started and played 5 minutes. I don't know what they're doing. He had 1 point. Just start someone else. Just start Derrick Rose or start Emmanuel quickly if you want Derrick Rose to still come off the bench. I don't really get it, but Alec Burks continues to be a scoring threat. Really, the Knicks, just what they have to do is they've got to find offense somewhere, because there are not going to be many nights where this Hawks offense, no matter how good your defense is held to 92 points. And if the Knicks are consistently barely scoring 100, I don't know if you're going to beat the Hawks in a 7-game series. It's going to be tough. I do think the Hawks at this point probably have more talent on their roster, more scoring talent, but the Knicks have the ability to make their life really difficult on the offensive end of the ball. They've just got to find some offense from somewhere, and that's got to be Julius Randle. Julius Randle has been the guy all season. He put up over 20 points per game. But through the first 2 games, he's hardly averaging double digits. It's not looking good for him so far. He's got to adjust. I said this in the previous video. He's just taking tough shots. They don't have a great playmaker on this roster. Their best playmaker might be him and Elfrid Payton, who doesn't even play. Given Elfrid Payton isn't very good at this point in his career, so I'm not surprised he doesn't play that much. But overall, they just don't have much playmaking, and I think that really affects their ability to score. Julius Randle is probably the best playmaker at this point on this roster, and if he can't make for himself. So they need another playmaker. That's something they have to pick up in the offseason, but I do think they can still win the series. Like, it's a 1-1 series, so of course they can win, but ultimately, they've got to not only lock up, but they've got to find offense from somewhere. I'm not sure if that comes from Julius Randle or if it comes from the peripheral guys, but it's got to come from somewhere for them to win this series. So that's my thoughts on the game. Let me know what your takeaways were. Let me know what you think of these series. Let me know what you thought of what I said about the Sixers, Jazz, Knicks, Hawks, all these different teams. Yeah, so I appreciate you guys watching. If you made it this far, comment below that say Ben Simmons is good. because I feel like a lot of people don't believe that, especially on Twitter. If you don't believe me, go check out anytime I tweet about Ben Simmons. Go check the comments, you'll see what I mean. But I appreciate you guys watching so far in this video. I know this was a longer one, but I kind of wanted to talk a lot, so here you go. I appreciate you guys watching. I'll see you guys later.